Hello and welcome back to another episode of Getaway Day. As always, I am Mason, he is Gautam, and we are here for episode 108. For those of you that read the title, yes, it is a Junie B. Jones reference. I'm that guy. Love Junie B. Jones. Gautam, I can't imagine you've seen the title yet.
Nope.
So it is Diamond Sports and the stupid Smelly RSN model.
Okay. Wonderful.
Pretty good title, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, so obviously we'll get to This Week in Baseball, and then after that, as the name suggests, we're going to be talking about the Diamond Sports Group and the RSN model and everything that's going on there. So we will start with This Week in Baseball, but before we do, Gautam, how's your week? What's going on? Have you been watching a lot of baseball? What's happening?
I've been watching a decent amount of baseball. I'm really distraught about the Cubs right now because they are 5th in the major leagues in hitter WAR. They're 11th in the major leagues in pitching WAR, yet they have the 7th worst record in baseball. So that just doesn't add up so far. I can't say that they don't deserve it, but I just wish they were doing better. I'll just leave it at that. That's my mini Cubs rant of the day.
Yeah, I'm really glad that they're not doing better. So I really can't feel for you there. The kind of what happened last month where you didn't feel bad for me, that's exactly what's happening now the other way. But oh well, this rivalry is just never going to be pleasant between the two of us whenever one team is good and the other team's struggling.
Which is all the time because the Cubs always suck.
Yeah. And then for that 3 weeks, the Cardinals sucked. The first 3 weeks since 1996. Dang. All right. But yeah, it's been a fun week. We do have a couple of things that we probably should talk about from this week. The first being, it seems like last time we just sat there and crapped on a team for a long time. They went on a hot streak. So we're going to try it again. Tell me how bad the San Diego Padres have been. Hint, bad.
Yeah, it's been really bad. And Manny Machado is now on the injured list for the first time since 2014. He fractured his finger or something. And he couldn't tough it out. And he was already struggling a ton. And the entire offense in general is just not living up to the hype. They've got all the superstars in there, Tatis, Soto, Bogarts. They've been okay. And then the supporting players who have been a lot better than this are just like completely tanking. Like you look at like a Jake Cronenworth this year, just like struggled so much. Hitting 211, 325, 373. He just seems like he's been sort of getting worse and worse the last like couple of years. He has not been the same player at all. Ha-Sung Kim, kind of underwhelming in the same way. He was looked like he was making a lot of progress last year, and it's just kind of gone out the window. Remember when Austin Nola could actually hit? It's been years since we've been able to see that. Trent Grisham, he's been lost for 2+ years now at the plate. So, like, you have so many issues with this lineup, and we've actually talked about that quite a bit over the last few years, but it seemed like this year it was going to be different because they brought in Bogarts and they made other kind of additions.
And Tatis was coming back.
Exactly.
Like, this is a team that I think I picked to win the division at the beginning of the year. Did I not?
We both did, yeah.
Yeah, like, it's still an incredibly talented team. Like, there's no denying that. Xander Bogaerts, Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis, and Manny Machado, those 4 names right there are a superstar core. No ifs, ands, or buts. Like, you could debate on the definition of a superstar, and the ESPN broadcast yesterday, they said something about Jose Ramirez is like the biggest superstar you may never have heard of, which, one, superstar implies that people know you. So that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but there's no argument that these 4 are not superstars. And I mean, 3 of them have been the best hitters on the team in Bogaerts, Soto, and Tatis. But that's really not saying a lot. Like, Tatis has got a 274 average. That's the highest on the team by a considerable margin, about 20 points. The power has kind of been there, but not really truly.
Yeah. And just to that point, the Padres have the worst batting average in the entire league. Like, they're worse than Seattle and the Tigers and Oakland. They have a 222 batting average this season. And we talked about like runners in scoring position. I think we actually had a text chat about that a couple of days ago, and they have been under 200 with runners in scoring position for the entire season.
Which
that's just like not going to work.
That's comparable to what the Cardinals were doing in that stretch where everyone was talking about how bad they were. The only difference is the pitching for the Padres is keeping them in some more games than happened for the Cardinals, so you don't hear about it. So, but it's an abysmal offense right now that's loaded down with superstars and guys who have been really good plus players in the past. I mean, Nelson Cruz, we kind of figured was on his downhill slope. Matt Carpenter, we didn't really know what we were going to get after his just absolutely stellar performance in New York last year before he went out with a broken hand. Can't remember broken foot. But really, it just, I don't know. It feels weird because I don't think this team is this bad. Well, because they're not. But they're not this bad.
Well, I mean, they're not, but at some point, like, they gotta start putting some things together, and they could, but there's issues on the pitching side too. And it starts with Blake Snell. I've been watching a whole bunch of his starts, and just it's the same thing. Like, every game, he'll pitch like okay, but then he'll run into a lot of trouble. He'll have a really bad inning there, and then he'll end up leaving in like the 5th inning or the 4th inning or something. He'll give up like 4 or 5 runs. It's just like the same thing every week.
Yeah, and he's got a
really frustrating
13% walk percentage.
And for a guy that at the second half of the last season, he put everything together, he was probably a top 5 pitcher in the league. And then for him to struggle like this, it's just like maddening to watch, really. And it's got to be even more maddening for Padres fans. I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, Musgrove hasn't been much better.
Yeah, since he came back from the injury, he's really struggled. Darvish has been pretty good. They got decent
Michael Wacha has been surprisingly good.
Yeah, but
yeah, I don't know. I really hope this team is able to turn it around, because this is not what this team is. Like, a lot of these players that are underperforming right now have been incredibly good in the past. I mean, Blake Snell's got a Cy Young. He's not this bad. Joe Musgrove, not a Cy Young, but he's been really, really good. Josh Hader's actually kind of figured it out from last year, so I'm not terribly concerned about him. He does walk a lot of guys, but
that's always kind of been the case.
Yeah.
He's Josh Hader. He's good.
But yeah, but it's really weird to see this team struggling this much in a division that we thought was theirs. So
yeah, I mean, that was stupid on our part, to be honest. But kind of to compare the Padres situation to the Cardinals, they play in a much, much tougher division. And it's going to be a lot tougher for them to dig themselves out of the hole that they're putting themselves in now, because they're looks like they're about 7.5 games out of first place at this point. So it's not going to get easier for them. They just have to play a lot better.
Yeah. I completely forgot that they were basically in the same, because they've been on a slide that the Cardinals are actually caught up to the Padres at this point in the standings. So I think half a game back in the wild card behind the Padres. So yeah, these are 2 teams on completely different trajectories at the moment. But that kind of brings me into my next topic. the Cardinals are in third place now. Like, we trashed them 2 weeks ago. They got hot last week. We talked about them. They're looking really, really good right now. They're, I think, currently as we speak, losing 5-4 to the Reds, which is not fun. I don't like that at all. But this is a team that's won 11 out of their last 14 games after starting the season 10-26 or 10-24. They've now got themselves up to 21-27, still 6 games below 500, but only 5 back of the division lead. In the last 3 days, they went from 5th place to 3rd place. So they're finally starting to make some moves within the context of the NL Central, and doing it by taking 3 of 4 against the Dodgers, sweeping Boston, winning 2 of 3 against Milwaukee, winning 2 of 3 against the Cubs. They're beating everybody. They're beating good, really good teams like the Dodgers, and then they're beating teams that have been up and down, admittedly, this season in the Brewers and the Cubs and the Red Sox. But all these teams do have really good pieces and have been kind of showing that they could potentially compete in their divisions this year. Red Sox excluded because that's the AL East, but they have shown that they can do some good stuff this year. And so the Cardinals being able to put it all together, actually getting some quality starts out of the starting pitching, but really more so the offense is just on fire. They scored 32 runs in a 4-game series against the Dodgers in Busch, which is not a hitter's ballpark at all. So that's been a really, really fun thing for me to see. I know you despise it with a fiery burning passion. We've talked about that many times, but that's kind of the exact foil for the Padres. Just the complete opposite. It seems like the Cardinals just can't stop winning, whereas it seems like the Padres couldn't win if they wanted, if they bought it.
Yeah, and that's just how baseball goes sometimes. You feel like you can never lose, and then you lose to the Reds. But, I mean, that just happens. And why can't the Cardinals just be like a normal team and just play like normal?
Because
they
that's
literally
not
just
fun.
they just snap the finger, they become the best team in the league after being the worst team in the league for the first 5-6 weeks.
You know why that is, right?
Why?
It's the horns under the hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They fixed their devil magic machine. It's working.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
It just overdue maintenance. It broke.
Yep. Pretty much. So.
And yeah, I mean, but there's good reasons for why they play so well. Major breakout from Nolan Gorman.
Yeah.
He's just
major turnaround from Arenado, who's currently on. Let me see if he's got a hit in this game. But he was on a 12-game hitting streak before this game. He does not currently have a hit. But
yeah, so
he's got 7 home runs in that span.
Yeah, so, in fact, if you look at his overall numbers, you wouldn't even have known that he had the worst stretch of his career because he'd just been so ridiculously hot for 2 straight weeks.
Potentially the best stretch of his career immediately following.
Yeah, it's just freaky.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, those two aren't super surprising, the Nolans. I thought Nolan Gorman was going to kind of break out this season.
Yeah.
The one that does surprise me is Paul DeJong, re-breaking out after multiple seasons of struggling in a big way. Now he's just mashing home runs left and right.
Another one tonight, a 3-run shot to left field. But yeah, he changed his swing in the offseason. Did a whole bunch of work working with the mental health coaches with the Cardinals, and it seems like he's back, honestly. I don't expect him to continue hitting this hot the whole season, because it would be crazy to expect anyone to do that. But this does feel a lot more like the Paul DeJong of old, circa 2019, than it does the 2021-2022 Paul DeJong. And you can kind of just see that in his swing. He just seems more comfortable, and I think that's a pretty big part of it for him. He's also got rid of his leg kick, so he's just a lot more, or there's a lot less moving parts in his swing, and I think it's benefited him. So there are reasons that he is broken back out. That one isn't necessarily the devil magic machine, but it's probably partly the devil magic machine. So, but yeah, so I think we got 2 more points here in This Week in Baseball, and then we'll move on to our main topic. But we've got 2 teams who we've been talking about a lot, about potential relocations, about potential selling of the teams, and that is the Rays and the A's. And we have some news that came out about the Rays, which I was not expecting. I believe the headlines referred to it as there are currently multiple potential buyers for the Rays. Some in Tampa, some that would move the team.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the headlines said. Now, are the Rays actually looking to sell? I didn't think they were.
So, yeah, the owner, Stuart Sternberg, he says no, they're not trying to sell. Obviously, he's not going to, tip his hand. Maybe he's not ready to say that yet. But right now, Sternberg says that building the new stadium in St. Petersburg or Tampa for $1.2 billion is like the primary goal at this point. We talked about, I think, several weeks ago about a new company that was going to be pairing with the Rays to develop the land around the current St. Petersburg ballpark, and then have that stadium be built sometime in the future. But the names of the local buyer is this guy named Dan Doyle Jr. He's a Tampa-based company CEO, and basically he's local to the area and trying to purchase the Rays. And
I assume he would be one of the guys looking to keep them in Tampa/St. Pete.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. But I'm sure there are many other people willing to enter the ring if they can relocate the team as well. I mean, we've talked about here in the last couple of years, they were potentially going to try doing a 50-50 home and home situation where they were Montreal and Tampa, a couple other weird things like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if, like, in some of these articles, you're going to read a name from somewhere in the Montreal area. Potentially one of these cities that's trying to get a major league team, an expansion team, is what most teams are trying to get. I don't think Nashville, Portland, Salt Lake City is really interested in bringing in an existing team, because I think they want to have their own history. But if you can get a team, you're going to get one no matter how you get it.
Yeah, and side benefit is if you do relocate your team, you don't have to pay an expansion fee.
Yeah.
Which is potentially a big deal. It's $2.2 billion.
Yeah. So, but as of right now, the Rays are saying they're not selling, which we saw what that meant for Dan Snyder and the Commanders in the NFL. He wasn't going to sell either. He did finally. So maybe it does happen, but I would not look at the Rays as to be the next team to have something happen. And that's because just this afternoon, there was a report that Nevada lawmakers are not going to go higher than $175 million in public financing for the A's stadium in Oakland that they want to build on the site of the Tropicana. So the A's were asking for $395 million. If they can't get over 175, that's $220 million that either Fisher needs to just pony up, which I forgot. Is it John? Jim?
John Fisher.
Jeff Fisher. John Fisher. He's got to have to pony up another $220 million on top of the roughly $1 billion that he was already going to pay.
I mean, if we know anything about John Fisher,
he's not going to do that.
He's not willing to pony up money, and that's why it's taken so long for them to resolve their situation with this, getting a new stadium.
Yeah, and in the same statement, it was stated that there are doubts as to whether the A's will fill that gap. So if the A's don't fill that $220 million gap, which is not something that I'd find in my couch cushions. Now, maybe John Fisher has a bigger couch than I do. Maybe he's a little bit more reckless with his money, but it does not seem that way.
If you had that much money in your couch, you'd you'd do it. You'd pony up.
Oh, I would. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm not very financially responsible. So if I had 200 million in my couch, I'd probably put that up and then just finance the last 20 million. So, but yeah, so I think what we were saying a couple weeks ago was that there was this binding agreement, but I wouldn't be surprised if it fell through and they had to go talk to Oakland again and potentially get a stadium there.
Basically, the third different update since we heard about the first binding agreement to Vegas, right? Because what was it last week that we heard about?
They had a new binding agreement at a different place.
At a different site, yeah.
And then that was hinging upon them getting $395 million in public funding. Now they're coming in under half of that. So what are they going to do?
Back to the drawing board.
I honestly think, and we talked about this. I don't remember if it was actually on recording or if it was in a side conversation, but I really think that we're at the point where owners are going to try and force him out, because you could make the argument, well, why would all of the small market owners that don't want to spend a lot of money want to force him out? Well, the reason that they would want to is expansion of the league is hinging upon this man getting a stadium for his team and figuring out where his team is going to be. If this is another 10 years on figuring out the A's, that is 10 years of keeping the money pool in Major League Baseball the exact same size. The small market owners want to increase the amount of money that they get in revenue sharing. What's the best way to do that? Expand the money pool. Period. So if you are getting less money because that guy over there can't just figure out his house, get rid of the guy. You can vote him out with 20. Is it 24 votes? I think they can vote him. Or no, that's in the NFL. I think it would be. Yeah. I think it would be less than that. I think it'd be like 22 or 23.
I've never heard about that. I don't know.
I think it's like 75% usually. At least that's what it is in the NFL. So, but yeah, I would not be surprised if this doesn't get resolved by the end of 2023 with an actual plan that is moving forward. I would not be surprised to start hearing about that this offseason. Now, at least the A's are not losing all of their money in a bankruptcy situation by a different company. So, it's a really bad segue into our main topic, but
it is.
Yeah. But no, the A's are an incredibly cheap team. Most teams take their money from their TV deal and put that into their team in some way, shape, or form. They say it's usually going to be through the money to the roster. It never usually is. Maybe it is, but you never really see it. But that's kind of where our main topic for tonight lies. And that is with the bankruptcy filing of Diamond Sports Group, the regional broadcast or regional sports networks for 14 MLB teams, 19 networks total that support 42 major sports league teams across the NHL, the NBA, and Major League Baseball and MLS. They are all owned by Diamond Sports Group. Back on March 14th, Diamond Sports Group filed for bankruptcy protection because they had missed a $140 million interest payment. And then a couple weeks later, they missed payments to 5 Major League Baseball teams for the rights to broadcast their games. This has been a really, really weird situation. We've definitely mentioned it here before. But I just kind of wanted to give you a rundown just to show you how big of a deal this is of what teams Diamond Sports Group broadcasts. So they broadcast my Arizona Diamondbacks, the Detroit Tigers, Miami Marlins, Kansas City Royals, my actual team, the St. Louis Cardinals, Minnesota Twins, Cincinnati Reds, San Diego Padres, the Atlanta Braves, the Texas Rangers, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Milwaukee Brewers, the Cleveland Guardians, and the Los Angeles Angels. 14 teams, including the two big teams in the Cardinals and Braves.
Yeah. And then I think before we get into it, really, we should talk about how did they get here? How did Diamond Sports get in the picture of this whole thing? And that goes back to 2019 when Sinclair Broadcast Group closed a deal for $9.6 billion for them to buy 21 Fox regional sports networks and Fox College Sports. And of that $9.6 billion, over $8 billion of that was through borrowed money, basically. So they were already settling Diamond Sports Group, which operates all these regional sports networks for the MLB teams and then all the other sports, like Mason mentioned, with this massive amount of debt. So they were already like in a kind of position of extreme, like, potential for issues to arise just because of the way that they were purchased.
Yeah, and even kind of before that, like the regional sports networks have kind of bounced around ownership a bit there over like a 3-year period because they were owned by Fox. They were all Fox Sports Midwest, Fox Sports Ohio, whatever. Well, when Fox sold off a whole bunch of stuff over to Disney, 20th Century Fox, the rights to the X-Men and all that stuff that ended up going back into Marvel, well, the regional sports groups or networks were all a part of that. So Disney owned them for a bit. Disney wanted no part of sports broadcasting. So they sold them off to Sinclair, which Sinclair has also in the past bought Yes Network, the Yankees network. They still technically own a lot of it, but not all of it, I think. So they're not one that's really affected by this necessarily because that is still owned, I think, mostly by the team, just with a
I would say that
stake.
those. So like Sinclair also helped the Cubs set up the Marquee Network, but they're not like the primary part of it, and it's kind of separate from this whole regional sports network situation.
Yeah. But yeah, so, but basically, Diamond Sports Group, which was they were the group that was in Disney that all of these regional networks were under. They've bounced around 3 different companies, and Sinclair went and said, okay, we'll buy you for almost $10 billion. We'll put about 15% of that down, and we're going to mortgage the rest over the next 30 years. Which, if you're buying a house, not necessarily the worst way to finance things, because housing costs and interest rates are usually pretty standard. But the difference is with a house, you don't have a market that's been changing wildly over the last 10 years. That's where this all comes into play, because the biggest problem for Diamond Sports Group is that they have been losing money. And I say losing money. They've been losing profit over the last couple of years. They used to make about 25% profit on revenue per year. It is down to about 12 to 15% in 2022. And it's continuing to trend down as people are getting rid of their cable, going to YouTube TV, going to streaming platforms, all that stuff. That's where Diamond Sports Group made all of their money, was by selling their channel to Comcast, to Spectrum, to Charter, to whatever your local cable company is. They would sell it to them. The cable company would sell it to you. And that's how they made their money. And they were able to go out and basically sign contracts with teams like the Cardinals for $1.1 billion in 2018 because things were going great. They were making a ton of money.
Yeah. And the key thing there is that those deals that they agreed to were always dependent on the number of viewers that would actually be subscribing to the cable or whatever distributor, like your Xfinity or your DirecTV or whatever it is. And so it was based on like the volumes that they were able to create these massive deals. So what did you say the Cardinals one was? 1.1 billion.
1.1 billion for 15 years.
Yeah.
Which is not the biggest. I mean, the Dodgers, who they own 50% stake in theirs, it's not through Diamond Sports Group. But their deal is like 25 years, $8.2 billion, which is just ludicrous.
Yep. It's just a massive amount of money. And that's why this is such a big deal, because this is so important for how the teams are making their money, basically.
Yeah. And so now we've got basically this situation where we have 14 teams that are all promised $40+ million a year for the rights to broadcast their games. Diamond Sports Group failed to pay $140 million in just interest, and then withheld payments to 5 clubs at the time. The Arizona Diamondbacks, the Texas Rangers, the Cleveland Guardians, the Minnesota Twins, and the Cincinnati Reds. I believe, not 100% certain, but about 98% certain that the Reds have been paid at this point, but the other 4 still have not. There was a motion filed by Major League Baseball, a motion to compel, that basically they're asking the bankruptcy judge to force Diamond Sports to pay them the money that they're owed for this season. As part of that, the judge ruled that they had to pay at least half of it, and then there is a legal or court date. There we go, for March 31st, where they will basically determine. Yeah, May 31st. Sorry, where they will basically determine if they're responsible to pay the rest of the fees, if there's going to be some negotiated fee that's lower, like what. Basically, the 31st is where we're going to start to figure out what's happening for this year. But there's a lot of things that could happen in that. Like, they could
So that's where things get fuzzy for us, because in the bankruptcy, there are basically a few different options that could play out, basically. There's one option where the deals that they have in place, they would just continue on with them. There's another path where those contracts would just get renegotiated. They rip them up and they start over. And then there's another option where Diamond Sports Group would just walk away completely from the deal. So it's similar to like a business that would go bankrupt. Like I think I read about an example of like comparing this to like JCPenney going bankrupt. There were some stores that they just continued on with the leases that they had in place. Some of them they just walked away from, and then other ones they renegotiated the deal.
Yeah.
So it's very similar to that.
Yeah, and essentially what bankruptcy is it is this really fancy legal process to allow yourself to restructure to put yourself back in a profitable position. So it's the point of bankruptcy is not to fold a company. Is to allow them to restructure and renegotiate terms in order to have a profitable company that benefits everyone, that is still a part of that company moving forward. Through this process, Diamond Sports Group will not be under Sinclair anymore on the other side of it. So Sinclair won't be able to saddle them with any more debt. They won't have a say in anything, yada, yada, yada. But we get to this really weird situation where it doesn't seem like they're just going to keep all the deals they have in place as they are, because if they were, they would have just paid them. Because they have the money. The judge forced them to set aside the amount of money that would be paid in rights fees in a separate account so that depending on what happens on the 31st, it could be paid immediately. So they have that money. Other creditors would probably be screwed, but they don't have a product if they don't have the rights to the Major League Baseball franchises. So it's one of those that this is the biggest creditor in Major League Baseball, so they're going to get paid first. But so they have the money, they don't want to pay it. So it seems like they're going to go into either renegotiating or cutting ties entirely. And
And it does not seem like they want to go down that second route because this is incredibly lucrative when things are going the way they should. It's just that now the landscape of this form of entertainment has changed, where those old massive mega billion-dollar deals for TV contracts paid to the teams just are not valued the same way. Like the teams would be happy to hang on to those same deals because they were just so incredibly like profitable for the teams. You'd never be able to make that up in streaming, as we're going to talk about here soon. But for Diamond Sports Group, it's just not going to work out for them. They're just not making the same profits as before.
Well, I think that's the other part of it too, is Diamond Sports doesn't want to back away from those. They don't want to back away from those deals because they still want the rights. They still want to broadcast the games. They just want to do it in a different way. So Diamond Sports Group in Bally, the casino that was potentially getting involved with the A's to bring the stadium into Vegas that we literally just talked about, is probably falling through. They own the naming rights for the channels. And so I'm going to probably keep calling this Bally's instead of Diamond Sports because I keep forgetting, because I'm just used to calling it Bally Sports Midwest. So if I say Bally's, I mean Diamond Sports Group. I'm just going to set that precedent here. But they have been starting to try and spin off Bally Sports Plus, their channel, or their direct-to-consumer channels that they currently have with 5 teams, and those are the ones that I was trying to find here on the side. I believe it was the Royals, the Tigers, the Marlins, the Brewers, and the Rays. You can watch all of their games on Bally Sports Plus. That's what Diamond is ultimately wanting to move to, an app where you can stream the games. And then they're also trying to build in some other things with Bally's for sports betting and all that other stuff that would be an entirely different medium than your typical TV broadcast.
Right. And so do you know if those subscriptions, are they included if you have like cable and you've got a package that has your channel? Do you get the streaming with it, or is that something that you're paying additionally for?
I think you pay additionally for it. I'm not 100% sure because St. Louis has never been a part of that. But let's see. So they're trying, or Diamond is hoping that by providing more bells and whistles with their Bally Sports Plus, as opposed to just a normal TV package, that they could get fans to pay $19 a month or $190 a year for Bally Sports Plus. That's their plan, because right now they get about $7 to $8 a month as part of your cable or satellite bill. So they're trying to essentially double their money by going into streaming, which Major League Baseball has only given them the rights to 5 of the 14 teams for streaming purposes, which is why you only have the Tigers, the Royals, Marlins, Brewers, and Rays. In this bankruptcy proceeding, Diamond is actually trying to fight for essentially the court to rule that they are paying for the rights to the club, so they should be able to do it on a streaming package as well, so that they could then add those other 9 teams, expand their target audience by a considerable margin, because that would include the Cardinals and the Braves. The Cardinals, by the way, as far as TV is concerned, is the biggest team in baseball. They are the number 1 TV ratings out of Major League Baseball for the last couple of years, and pretty consistently top 2. Last year alone, they averaged 225,000 viewers per game, which is 33 million viewers a year. For reference, in the stadium, the Cardinals draw 3 million a year, and that's the second highest in baseball, behind only the Dodgers. So that's kind of their crown jewel, is the Cardinals, and then the Braves are right next to that. And those are the 2 that they really, really, really want to get the rights to try and go and expand. Like, some of these other teams aren't as profitable, but Major League Baseball has only given them 5 of the less profitable teams. So they're kind of in this weird situation where they want to make more money. They can't unless they have those rights. But if they start walking away from contracts, they're definitely not going to get the rights to the others for what they want to do.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that the Cardinals haven't spun off their own network.
It's because they own
the
30
other big market.
It's because they own 30% of this one already and are getting paid $1.1 billion.
Well, yeah, but it could be potential for even more. They could be right up there with these other massive, bigger deals.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. Probably in 2032, I would not be surprised to see that happen.
Yeah, that's definitely because they don't fit in with these lower revenue teams that are part of Bally for the most part. Most of those teams that play on Bally Sports are revenue recipients in revenue sharing.
Yeah. Whereas the Cardinals are payers.
Yes.
But yeah, it's kind of a weird situation. I think part of the reason that they didn't try and spin off their own network is because of the fact that they were building Ballpark Village at the time. So I think DeWitt was kind of working on one cash cow at a time, trying not to overextend. But now that Ballpark Village and the apartment complex and all that stuff is there, I would not be surprised to see them start to spin off. I mean, they've already got the studios and everything in Ballpark Village. So they've got not half, but they've got like a pretty big piece of that in the studio right there in-house. So why not start to just pay everyone yourself and then make the money yourself? Like, it kind of feels like that's the next step. But in the meantime, this is what we're working with. They're getting paid $1.1 billion. That's $73 million a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's kind of branch that off. I think the Cardinals one is the perfect example to talk about the streaming landscape, and then also how that relates to blackouts, and like what are the realistic chances of having a streaming platform where we can watch all 30 teams anywhere in this country without any blackouts at a reasonable cost. So the Cardinals situation is that, like you said, they are being paid $73 million a year until 2032 to be shown on Bally Sports Midwest. And they're only reaching about 15% of their territory, correct?
Yes, 15% of Southern Illinois, Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska, Mississippi, Arkansas, and a couple others down south there. They've got like 9 states that are all considered the Cardinals viewing region. And they are reaching 15% of households right now.
And when they reach 15% of households, they are still reaching over 200,000 fans in a year.
200,000 fans per game.
Per game, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
And when you think about a streaming platform that would be available to watch the Cardinals, and you just take $100 as the price for that subscription, you need to have 730,000 streaming subscriptions just to make up the value of your current deal with Diamond Sports Group.
Well, and that's assuming per person, but most subscriptions tend to be within a household.
Right. So even more subscriptions.
Really, you got to have about 4 times that. If we're just going to assume that you've got a family of 4, you're going to have basically 250,000 subscribers.
Yep. So that's the gap for the most popular team on TV between a full the streaming the streaming situation versus the current situation. There's that massive gap for a team like the Cardinals. That gap widens as you go down to the less popular teams. When you look at the Reds and you look at the Tigers and the Guardians and stuff, and those teams don't draw nearly as many fans, and there'd be even less appetite for the price that you would have to pay to make up what they are getting in these deals, which are all at least $40 million to the teams.
Yeah,
I think close to $50 million.
And we're definitely oversimplifying it quite a bit. And I think the first thing is, one, Bally Sports is trying to get $19 a month or $190 a year for subscription to their service. So that's basically double what we just said. So that cuts your subscribers in half that you would need, but that's still a lot of money, and there's going to be a lot of people that are not willing to pay that.
Wait. You can subscribe to that?
Well, so you can subscribe to it. That's not the pricing right now. That's the pricing that they want if they have all 14 teams.
I see. I was like, the Cardinals were not included in the teams you mentioned.
No, the Cardinals were not. But for the Tigers, the Royals, Marlins, Brewers, and Rays, you can subscribe to Bally Sports Plus and get their games anywhere. But I'm not sure what the pricing is right now. But they're hoping that they could attract fans at about the $190, $200 a year price range, which for like me, if they have the teams that I like, which would be most of the teams, at $200 a year, that's piece of cake. I would pay that in a heartbeat to be able to watch every game. But I'm not the main target audience because they know that I'll pay it. They're trying to get people that are not willing to pay because they're cutting their costs on their cable bill, whatever. So you got to be a little bit better with the pricing. The other part that we completely left out is with the way that it works now, the teams do not control the advertising. Bally doesn't control the well, they might control the advertising. I'm really not sure. But with the streaming platform, you now have advertising there that's separate from advertising on TV. So depending on who owns that platform, you're going to bring in a significant amount of money through advertisements from all of the big companies that are probably going to advertise, like Budweiser, like your Ford, your Chevy, all those. That would bring down, or they would help make up, I guess, the amount of money up to what they're paying the clubs for the rights. The question is just, what realistically would they make in a year in advertising that would then get passed on to the teams? Because to us, we don't understand the money all that much. It doesn't feel like you're going to be able to make up the same $73 million with 73,000 subscriptions or whatever it is. And 15% of the advertising money. It just doesn't really feel like that's going to work out. Granted, we're not financial gurus.
Yeah. And I think we should also look at the big market teams like the Dodgers and the Cubs and the Red Sox that have their own networks, and just try to understand how unpalatable it is for them to actually like become part of a big streaming service where they didn't have exclusivity, didn't have blackouts in their regions. They're basically like giving up so much money, and it just doesn't, like, why would they do that exactly?
Well, so really, I was just talking about even just the 14 teams that are currently under Diamond. Like,
yeah, but it's completely separate from the teams that are not covered by Diamond.
Yeah.
They want it even less.
Yeah, but as a fan, and Rob Manfred, the commissioner in Major League Baseball, both of us are in agreement on one thing, and this might be the first thing that he and I have ever agreed upon. It would be really, really, really nice for the viewers to have a central market for baseball games, for streaming games. One place where I could go and subscribe to the Cardinals and the Padres and the Mariners, or subscribe to all 30 teams, or subscribe to the NL Central or whatever, and pick what I want and be able to watch all games in market and out of market in one location. That would be ideal.
Yep.
That's what Manfred would like, because that brings all of the control of it in-house to Major League Baseball. It makes it so that you have a lot more control over the amount of money that comes in, the amount of money that is ultimately going to go to the profit sharing for the poorer teams. And it makes a lot of sense for about 15 owners and the fans. Yeah. Now, who it doesn't make sense for is exactly who you're talking about. Teams like the Cubs, teams like the Dodgers, teams like the Red Sox and the Yankees and the Mets that all have their own broadcasts or their own networks. They have all of that revenue from people subscribing to their networks. I think Marquee has a streaming service, don't they?
They do, yes.
Yeah, so they're making money through that. They're making money by selling Marquee to Comcast and to Spectrum and whatever. They're making money from the advertisement that's directly on their channel that they own 100% of. So they're making a ridiculous amount of money. Why would they then want to spin off their streaming through Major League Baseball, where it's then part of profit sharing? So all of that money goes in, and then little bits are taken out.
It's still part of profit sharing no matter what, but they're cutting into their profits. So 48% of local revenues are shared amongst all the teams. That is revenue sharing.
Okay. So how would it cut into their profits then?
Because they're not making the money directly from their streaming service. It's going through another party, basically. It's not them.
I mean, I feel like the way that you could structure that and the way that it gets paid out really wouldn't be that much different. Because it would be basically you take 48% of the money that comes. Well, no, I guess I see what you mean. Because instead of subscribing specifically to them, and then 48% of that goes to the league, 52% stays with the team, you're now subscribing to the league. And so how does the league divvy it up? So that they go, well, this person subscribed to all 30 teams. So is their $300 or whatever it is a year going to be split up 30 ways? And then 48% of that? Or how does that work? Because if I'm paying for all 30 clubs probably should get money from that somehow.
Yeah.
But if someone's paying for a specific team, it makes it a lot easier. Because then you could just say, well, this was for a Cubs broadcast for the season. So 52% of that, here, just take your money and leave. Here's your allowance. Go buy a candy bar.
Yeah, exactly.
But
it's very complicated, and basically what I think we're heading towards is something a la carte like that, where you will have a little bit more choice about what teams you actually get to watch and stuff, but it's not going to be so simple as just turn on your MLB TV and have all 30 teams ready to go. That's probably not happening for quite some time. Yeah. And the thing that we didn't mention is that these contracts are very long, the ones that are still in place, and they have to probably run their course or get renegotiated or something, but it's going to be years down the line before we start seeing major changes across the board.
Yeah. So I kind of want to pull this back a little bit to the beginning of the conversation. So streaming seems like it's the way that things are moving. Well, it is the way things are moving because it's with Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus, and everyone is going to streaming on an a la carte basis where you could pick what you want to watch, when you want to watch it, whatever. But they're all doing it within their own companies. Because Disney has Disney Plus, Netflix has Netflix, Paramount owns Paramount Plus, Peacock is owned by Comcast, and they put their own content on their own platform, which is kind of what it feels like baseball is probably moving to, at least in the short term, where these 14 networks are owned by Diamond Sports Group under the Bally Sports name. It would make sense if those 14 teams were all on a streaming service. And then you have all the ones that are through AT&T Spectrum, the Pirates, the Mariners, the Giants?
Astros. No, not the Giants.
Not the
Giants?
Astros.
And the Rockies.
Okay.
Did you already say them? Yeah.
I didn't say the Rockies, but it would make sense if they had their own streaming package that you get to pick out of that company's holdings, basically. You won't have one central location where you can watch all of them like you have with MLS, like you have with the NHL, which is unfortunate because the NHL is all done through ESPN Plus. MLS is done all through Apple TV Plus. Like, that's really convenient and really nice for fans. This is not going to be that way, at least in the short term. It doesn't feel like, because everyone's kind of fighting against each other. You have Bally that owns all the, Diamond Sports Group that owns the rights to these 14 teams, and they really don't want to give it up. They're going to do whatever they can to make sure that they hold on to those at some cost. Ideally lower for them so that they can make more profit. But then also through this, they want to get the rights to the other 9 teams for streaming. But the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Yankees, they don't want to share. So that feels like that's how it's ultimately going to go. But the point that I wanted to get back to, with the 5 teams that are in question right now, or the 4 teams really, because the Reds, I think, did get paid. With the 4 teams that are in flux, there were the 3 options. 3. 2, 3, whatever. Yeah. Hold up the right number of figures for me. That's the one. 3. Now I'm just picturing Shrek. Number 3, my lord. But these teams are ultimately not profitable from a TV viewership standpoint. The viewership is low enough in those regions. The teams aren't popular enough that people are going and buying cable just to watch them. In the Diamondbacks, the Guardians, the Rangers, and the 4th one. When was it?
Tiger.
Not the Tigers. Shoot.
The Twins.
Yes, the Twins. Thank you. Too many teams. So if Major League Baseball is not willing to renegotiate and Bally has to walk away, well, then you have 4 teams that baseball is trying to get on their own to then start their own streaming platform. So what ultimately are we going to see on the 31st? We have no idea.
Yeah, we have no idea.
All 14 could stay with Diamond. It's a very real possibility. That's what Diamond wants. Major League Baseball seems like they want to start to centralize everything. So, and the owners want their money. It was agreed to. So why shouldn't they get it?
There's a lot of layers to it, and I think we've tried to explain the side of MLB, the side of the owners, and the RSNs basically. But let's take a different perspective and just think about it as fans and the fan kind of idealistic view, because the fans, I feel like fans just say like end blackouts, and we're kind of painting the picture of why it's not like quite that simple. It's just not something that's going to happen, and there's a very good reason why it's not going to happen. But like, how do you consume baseball content on a daily basis?
I use MLB TV.
Use MLB TV. You watch the Cardinals, who are out of market for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have other forms of watching the Cubs, the White Sox, and the Reds.
Yes, other forms.
Yeah. So I can particularly put myself in that position, because I live in Iowa, which is the worst place in the United States to watch baseball, because there's 6 teams that are blacked out.
You didn't need the qualifier, dude. Also, it's 7, isn't it? Or is it 7 if you count the national broadcast game that day? This is 7.
I mean, there's not a national broadcast game every day.
Well, not every day, but I'm trying to, because there are up to 7 games a day that could be blacked out in Iowa.
It's possible, but you're like, a lot of times the teams are playing each other. So you've got 3 teams from the
NL Central.
Three teams from the NL Central: the Cubs, the Brewers, and the Cardinals. Then you got the Twins, the Royals, and
the White Sox.
So good chance those teams would be playing each other. But a lot of time when I'm just flipping on my Roku TV, I don't have any of those, 6 teams at the top of my thing because they're all blacked out, and I'm forced to watch like whatever other game is on. Being the crazy baseball fan that I am, obviously I'm going to use a VPN and find a way to watch those other 6 teams, but it's not like convenient, and it's not even convenient for me. I don't enjoy doing it. I just do it because I want to. But
well, and it's not convenient for the companies that ultimately own the rights in those areas because they're losing out on the money.
Yeah.
So
it's almost like how does the league strike the balance between growing their sport and like getting rid of blackouts, having more access for baseball fans around the country versus the money? And it seems like the money's gonna continue to win out. They're gonna just be they're not gonna prioritize growing the game of baseball.
no, they should, but they won't.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the only way that you can end the blackouts entirely is to have everything centrally located through MLB. All the money funnels through MLB and then is dispersed to the teams. Because that way, you don't have an issue with a regional sports network that has the rights to this team in this area. And then Major League Baseball has MLB TV that you're paying to watch those in-market games that doesn't go back through. So that's really the only way to end a blackout, is to just have MLB being the sole distributor of their content. But if the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Yankees, the Mets, the Red Sox are not willing to do that because they don't want to give up their money, well, you're going to have some kind of blackout from those 6 teams if they hold out. So you could have 24 cities without blackouts and 6 that do. But they're not going to do that because it's kind of an all or nothing sort of thing. Or that's what I imagine it is in the short term. Long term could be a different answer. But so it's really weird because it's like this entire bankruptcy for Diamond Sports Holdings is kind of the linchpin that could change all of this. Maybe this is going to spur more centrally located broadcasts through MLB where the Reds won't be blacked out anywhere unless they're playing the few teams that are. But then again, they could stay with Diamond. So who really knows?
Yeah. Hopefully we can give an update on that after the court date on the 31st.
Yeah.
And we'll see if that spurs some change. And I think the change is coming. It's just a matter of when it actually happens.
Yeah. And there is what are they calling it? An economic reform committee that has been formed with 4 owners. The majority owner of the Dodgers, Dick Monfort of the Colorado Rockies, curse Dick Monfort. And then 2 others that I forget who it is off the top of my head. But they're basically leading a research committee of owners, if you will, to look in potential ways to reform the economics of baseball, from the RSN model versus a streaming model versus some kind of hybrid, to everything about a salary cap and a salary floor to limit what Steve Cohen can do, but also try and get Bob Nutting and them to pay just a little bit more money than they are now. Like, that committee was just formed, and I have a feeling they're not really going to invest too much time in this particular topic. They're going to spend a lot more on getting a salary cap because they're making more and more money every year, no matter what. So if they can reduce the amount that they spend, their profit's just going to grow exponentially forever. Whereas this is such a complicated, muddy mess that no one is ever going to be happy. You're going to either have the poor owners that are upset, or you're going to have the rich owners that are upset. The disparity in the league between ownership is insane. So I think ultimately what Rob Manfred is able to do over the next 3 years, 4 years before the next CBA that's probably when we're going to start to see change, is during the next CBA. The next couple of years are going to be a lot of the same. You might see Major League Baseball take over some of these broadcasts. You might not. But either way, there is a reckoning coming. We just got to see what happens.
Yes.
I think that was a really good spiel for me to end on. Do you have anything else that you would like to say on the topic?
Yeah, just that it's really like embarrassing what John Fisher is doing. Like he's pushing the limits of this whole situation. Basically, like he doesn't have to sell a single ticket, and he's already got the $60 million from national TV deal money, and then he's got $40+ million from his local TV deal. So that's like $100 million right there. They have the lowest payroll in the league, I believe, and
which is somewhere in the 20 millions.
Yeah, and that's without selling one single ticket this year. So he's just pushing the limits of this current setup here.
Yeah. Now, he's certainly not making a ridiculous amount of extra money based on ticket sales, seeing as they have had multiple games where they have sold less than 3,000 tickets. Yesterday's game was 4,000 tickets sold. Like, they're selling at a AA baseball level right now.
Yes. And
he's still
probably
making,
happy with it.
He's still making $100 million plus all of the advertisement he has in the stadium. Like, this man is just raking it in while telling an entire city to go screw themselves.
Yes.
So, yeah, so I really hope this system changes at some point, because that's ridiculous. Like, the Reds, the Guardians, the Pirates, they abuse the system too. Don't think they don't, because they only pay $30 million in their payroll. But they're at least trying to get fans in the door too. So, yeah, it's a really, really sad situation. Only this were like, any other sport that cared that they had fans. So, oh well. So I think that is it for us for tonight. The Cardinals and the Reds are in extra innings, so I'm going to go and watch that game end. Thank you very much.
Time to fire up the VPN.
I don't have a VPN running. What are you talking about? I turned my VPN off. Thank you very much. Can't waste that 10 gigabyte a month. But yeah, so thank you very, very much for hanging out with us tonight. We will be back here not next Monday, because Gautam and I are going to be in Chicago doing a day-night Chicago doubleheader, going to Guaranteed Rate Field in the afternoon, and Wrigley in the evening. So
Other way around.
Oh, it's Wrigley in the daytime?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my bad. Okay. Wrigley in the daytime, Guaranteed Rate Field in the evening. We will be stuffing our faces with food and probably having a few beers, and you really don't want to hear us talk at that point. So we'll just come back a week later and be back on the, what day would that be? The 5th of June. So thank you very much, and we will see you next time. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcasting app or YouTube to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Getaway Day Pod. If you enjoy card collecting, check out our sister YouTube channel at Getaway Day Cards.